grabbing your beer and grabbing my coat. We about to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brandon T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brandon Taz, if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz, if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz, if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz, if it's your ex drinking buddy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the show, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. I used to hang out with friends, talk shit, talk shop, reminisce about old stories, and overall just getting fucked up. I'm sober now, but that is still one of my favorite things to do. Most weeks I will be joined by a guest. This week is no exception. Joined by comedian Adam Mitrani.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
What's up, man?
Not much. Just hanging out, sitting with your crazy dog.
Yes, she is pretty crazy. She's a staple here on the show because everyone always hears her.
Hearing her
she's gonna
panting.
kick that under the chair the whole time, so we might as well just let her
go
fight
at it
for it.
Yeah. Keep her busy.
So you're a comedian here in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Plug everything up front, right up top. Any shows you got coming up? Like I said, this will come out next week. So anything you got going on, social media, websites, podcasts, anything you want to plug.
So yeah, right now the only show that I have booked is December 16th in Portland, Maine. I'll be at Laugh Shack at Lincoln's.
There you go.
And then,
Laugh Shack. Shouts out.
I don't have a website right now, but you can follow me on Instagram at amitrani, and then on Twitter at amitrani717.
There you go. Okay. So you had an interesting story. We met playing basketball at front of the show, Jake Head's weekly basketball game. And you had said you had just moved back, and me, being the curious person that I am, I was like, what do you mean you just moved back? So kind of get into that, because when did you start doing comedy? Like, when did you decide to move to New York, and then what kind of happened with there?
Yeah, so I started doing stand-up like 4.5 years ago.
Okay.
When I was in college in Vermont. And
you went to Vermont?
Yeah, I went to University of Vermont. And then after I started my sophomore year, and then like did it throughout the rest of college, and then after that, like the September after graduating, which was like 2019, I moved here to do stand up, try and pursue that full time.
So I don't mean to interrupt you, but that was your thing, because it took me almost a decade of doing stand up before I thought like maybe I should move to a bigger city. Like obviously I thought it before, but I started in 2009 just doing open mics every once in a while and didn't take it super serious. Then I moved to Oklahoma City with my cousin, and I was still doing comedy then, but never once in that time did I actually make a serious push at moving to a big city. But you're a couple years in and you're like, fuck this, I'm going to the mecca of comedy.
Yeah, I think that, I kind of felt like I know that this is what I want to do.
Okay.
And because I had just graduated college, it like felt like the perfect time to leave Vermont.
Yeah.
Where like I was like, oh, I could wait another year, but then it always just becomes like another year.
Yeah.
Like I have friends that are still there that have been talking about moving for like forever.
That's exactly what happened to me with school. Once I finished my undergrad, I was like, oh, I can put off law school for a semester, which turned into a year, which turned into I'm not going to law school.
Right, yeah. And I just really didn't want that to happen, and I felt like, while I have, I don't like have like a family or anything, I don't have any real responsibilities. Like now is the perfect time to move to New York. But then I was here for 6
you said
months.
September of 19.
Yeah,
then what happened?
So, funny story. So there was this this whole like pandemic thing.
Yeah, the plague that ended everything.
Yeah, and so that happened, and then I was like, okay, well, I my only job is working as a nanny, and I can't really do that anymore because now like the kids' parents are home all the time and they're not in school, and then I can't do stand up, so I don't really want to be in New York, and so I moved back home with my parents in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and then my girlfriend at the time. So we had started dating like the end of our senior year of college, and we're doing long distance. She was in grad school in Philly. And then, and then she like came and lived with us in Harrisburg for 6 months.
How long had you? So you at that point you'd been dating probably almost a year.
At that point, we'd been together like about like a little less than a year. Yeah.
Okay. Your parents were cool with that?
Yeah,
That's sick. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then so she moved back to Philly in September of last year.
Okay.
And then I was like semi living with her, like going back and forth from like Philly to Harrisburg.
And were you doing comedy at the time, or were you just kind of like going to hang out with her on the weekends and then coming back?
Yeah, well, I was working. I got a job, like this AmeriCorps job, so I was working remote doing that, and it was based out of Philly. So I was just basically just like would spend like a week there, and then a few days at home, then like a week, and just back and forth, which was not great for my mental health.
Yeah,
and also like things were really rough in the relationship. Which, spoiler alert, it did not work out. We broke up a few months ago. Yeah, she was having a rough time and just like dealing with like just very depressed throughout that, and yeah, so that didn't really work out great living together.
The first time you were in New How locked in were you? I hope you don't mind my asking, but I'm always so curious by this kind of stuff. So you come to the city. That's a huge deal, especially like, I mean, you live a lot closer with your parents being in Pennsylvania, but like still to like pick up and be like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do. It's a very enlightened thing because 22, 23, 24 when you finish. I was
22 when I'm 25 now. I was 22 when I first moved here.
Okay, yeah. So and that's crazy to me because at 22 I was getting arrested and I was still in South Florida because it took me an extra year to finish school. Like. So that's bananas to me that you're just like, no, fuck this. This is what I want to do. I want to pursue this. Were you locked into a lease? Like, how did you?
Yeah, so I was in a lease. I moved here with my cousin and two of his friends that he went to college with that I didn't know before living with them. Yeah, so I've like fortunately like my parents were willing to like help me out with rent while I was living at home.
Okay.
So I was
you still were on the lease.
I was still on the lease.
Hook?
I tried to find a subletter, but like was unable to.
Yeah, especially.
And so just like with a few months left on the lease, I just finished it out. And then the only times that I came back to New York, were I came once like a couple months into COVID to just like get all my clothes and books and stuff, and then. At the end of my lease in August, like to fully move out.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, and that's something that always blows my mind because I've known a few comics who moved to New York from Florida, which is a much bigger undertaking than moving.
Well, that's where Jake is from Florida,
yeah,
right?
So Jake is from Jacksonville originally, and then went to Atlanta, and then went to New York, and now he's in Philly. But it's such a huge undertaking, and I know that now from personal experience being up here, but it was just crazy to me because I've heard stories of, we're going to move to the city, and then you show up and it's a flooded basement apartment, and you're like, this is not what we discussed.
Right, yeah.
And you have all your stuff like in a car in a U-Haul, and you have to turn around and just drive all the way back to Florida. And it's like, and to me, that's crazy. So when we first started talking, and you were like, yeah, I lived in the city and then I left and then I came back. I'm like, fuck that. Like, that seems like it would be so horrific. But, I mean, I guess if you're living in an apartment with a bunch of other people, it's a good apartment. Like, it's not. Obviously, if there's 4 of you, it's not going to be an apartment that's like got a hole in the ceiling or something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, actually, I was pretty spoiled with how nice the apartment was because it was a new building in Bed-Stuy.
Okay.
And since it was like it was a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, like very big living room and kitchen. Like, there was nothing really in the area close by, but, like, so the location wasn't great, but it wasn't...
Bed-Stuy
is, like... So where I lived, it was, like, right... Like, sort of, like, the border of Bed-Stuy and Bushwick.
Okay. So that's Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, it's Brooklyn.
Okay.
Yeah.
I still don't know this area very well.
Okay. Bed-Stuy, it's where Jay-Z, Biggie, Chris Rock... I think Spike Lee, all of them grew up there.
Okay.
It's definitely nicer than it was.
It's not there Brooklyn anymore.
Yeah, it's not like, Williamsburg or Greenpoint, but it's definitely not, the
Jay-Z's Brooklyn.
It's not the Bed-Stuy from Do the Right Thing.
Yeah, okay.
Like it's not that, but it's also not like Williamsburg.
Yeah. Okay, so you got there, brand new building, and then you were like, all right, we're going to get out of here. So you left and then did the parents thing. And then when you had mentioned you were going back and forth. Your girlfriend was in Philly at the time. That kind of wore on you. When did you decide, like, all right, now it's the time to go back to the city?
So I think it was like definitely once we broke up.
Okay.
Because then I was like, all right, now I really like have nothing holding me back. And, and while we were together, we talked about it. And, initially she was like, yeah, I'll like, as once I'm done with school, like I'll move to New York with you. And then, the like closer it came to that, sort of like the more ambivalent she became about it and the more she wanted to stay in Philly, which is like understandable, I mean, because she lived there and had friends there. And,
that's her whole life is there.
Yeah. And so like, and it was just like a complicated situation because like, I didn't want to like ask her to uproot her life for me, but she kind of like had led me into believing that was just what was going to happen.
That's what she was going to do?
Yeah. And then at the same time, and then she's like trying to convince me to stay in Philly. And it's just like, well, Philly's great. Nothing against Philly. Great city. I love it. But like, it's not.
Fuck Philly.
It's not what I wanted to, I mean, it's also, I like, okay, so I have like mixed feelings on Philly, partially because it's like the closest like big city to where I grew up.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but I always came to New York more because my parents just had a lot of friends in New York.
What's the train? I'm assuming, or did you drive?
We would drive.
Okay, and how long is that drive?
It's like 3 hours.
Okay, so it's not terrible.
Yeah, give or take, depending on traffic.
Okay, get to the greatest city in the world. It's not. that bad.
Exactly. Where Philly is, is 2 hours, so it's like barely closer.
Yeah.
And I always felt like Philly just seemed like New York light. Okay,
yeah, that's a good
like
way to put it.
Like they're so similar, and it is like great, but I'm always just like,
I'd rather
cool,
be
but
in
like,
New York.
New York is just a better version of this. Yeah. Yeah, it's oh, you're good. It's the gluten-free bread of cities.
Sorry to everyone listening. Technical difficulties. Savannah has all her bookcases everywhere, and I thought it was going to fall down right on Adam, so I wanted to make sure that didn't happen.
That would have been bad. That would have. I mean, it might have been good content. I guess better for like a video podcast.
Yeah, I don't record.
Like
so
audio only, it's just kind of sound like a mess.
You're just going to hear a big bang, and you'd be like, "What the fuck?" So the gluten-free New York. I love that. That's going to be the title of the episode. Philly is the gluten-free New York. So. All right, cool. So when you get back here, now what's your situation now? Are you with the same cousin, with the roommates?
No, so right now, my friend a friend of mine from camp, he's a musician. I'll just shout him out, Isaac Lewis.
What's up, Isaac?
Check out his music. He's insanely talented, but he lives in LA. And so his brother lives in New York, and his brother, like, I just like hit them up about like, hey, do you know anybody looking for roommates? And his brother's old roommate, whose name is Jason Segel, not the actor.
Oh God, that would have been crazy.
I would be really surprised if he needed roommates.
Yeah, at this point in his career.
Sad. But yeah, so I'm living with him. He found this place in Greenpoint. Him and a friend of his friend.
Back to Brooklyn.
Yeah, back to Brooklyn. Different area, much different. So like the apartment, not quite as nice, but definitely a significantly nicer area to be in. Right next to McCarran Park.
See, and that's the weird thing when it comes to living in New York. And I know I talked about this on the last episode with Marcus that came out last week, but you have to compromise always in New York. So when I was living in Florida, we had a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that was like a few miles from the beach, 20 minutes to downtown, and it was like $1,600 a month. And it's like, okay, you can just, when you have the money, like when you know what you want, you can like go find places for the money.
Yeah.
But in New York, it's like, oh, if this is your budget, you're going to compromise on something.
Right. Yeah.
Whether it's space or area, locate, like, how close you are to the subway versus how close you are to just walking distance to things. And that's been so mind-blowing to me. And you hear all the time, like, it's all about location, but also it's like I said, in Florida, you could be like, well, I want this, so I'll just go out and keep looking until I find this for this price, obviously within reason.
Right.
But in New York, it's like, oh, no, you either get near a subway and you get a shoebox, or you get way out in, like, Queens, but it's a little more dangerous, and the subways don't run as often.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Yeah.
Like, figure it out, dummy. And it's like okay, cool.
My place, it's not, it's not bad, but my room is tiny, and we got the living room is a decent size. I was like, I'll take the smallest room to say the least. But the kitchen, it's it's so, you know how kitchens are normally next to the living room?
Kitchens, right?
You know kitchens. It's where you cook. But like, so you walk in, there's the living room, and then there's a bathroom, and then there's a big wall, and then at the end of the hallway, there's just this little, like, 5-foot area
kitchenette?
That is the kitchen. Yeah. It's a full kitchen, but it literally looks like they just, like, when they were building the apartment,
shit, we
they were
forgot
like, oh
the
shit, we
kitchen.
forgot a kitchen. All right, I guess we can just use this space right here. That's enough space for a kitchen, right?
That's crazy.
That's really like what it looks like.
That's awesome. Yeah, we ran into the situation where we were like finding places, and they were like, "Oh, this living room is pretty big. Like, this is nice." And then you walk into the bedroom, and we have a king size bed, and Savannah had bought all new stuff for the bed, so she's like, "We're not getting rid of the bed." And you'd walk in the bedroom and go, "You can't even fit. Like, this bedroom's enough for a full, and that's it."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, that's not awesome." And like the apartment we have now, I love it. It's pretty big, all things considered, from a lot of the places we looked at, but it's a straight line.
Yeah.
Like it's longer than obviously it is wide, so it's weird because once you put everything in here, it's very narrow, and you're like, "Oh man, this is almost like a hallway once you get everything in here." And so it's interesting how that like, unless you have a shit ton of money, it's like you're gonna compromise on something.
And that's the thing, is like, even people that live here that like have money still compromise.
Yeah, that's true. We I joke with Savannah all the time when we go on our walks, like, okay, well, what are we gonna do if I sell a show? Like, if I get this check for like $500,000, like where do we want to live? Do we want to go to the high rises and these brand new because I'm a modernist, so I'm like, I want to go to the brand new building where they don't have rats and they don't have fucking bugs and everything's like integrated and the technology's up to date and like super fast. And she's always like, oh, I want to get one of these like little 100-year-old townhouses. And I'm like, that we're gonna have to fix everything in? She's like, well, no, some of them are renovated, and it's even like, even if you pretend that you have all the money in the world, it's still a compromise.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
So I wanted to get into. You did send me a list of some stories. I wanted to get into some of these. There's obviously one we're gonna save for last, which I'm sure you can guess which one that is.
Okay.
But that one takes place in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But
I figured that was the one.
Yeah. So you have a lot of drug ones. So when did you start doing edibles and smoking weed and all that kind of stuff?
So I started in...
They say a lot. There's like 3 drug ones that people don't get crazy.
I definitely have more like crazy weed stories than drinking stories. I started smoking like 9th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, so when I was
You were a cool kid.
Yeah, I was cool. Well, I also had an older brother.
Yeah.
He was 5 years older than me. So he actually died when he was 20.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah, so he would be 29 now.
Okay. What was that like when you were a kid? Because my older brother's 6 years older than me, and for me, it was very much like, I don't know if that was the line, 6 years, but we did not hang out like at all. Like,
I don't know. I think it just depends like more on like what the family dynamic is. Like,
that's true.
Do you only have that one sibling?
No, I've got I've got a twin sister, an older sister than my older brother. My older sister and older brother are thick as thieves, but and I think that might have taken away from.
Right. Yeah, because I've noticed that with like bigger families that the siblings are often like not as close.
Yeah.
I think just because like there's just so many people.
Yeah. So
where,
you get
like,
your one.
When
and
it was just the two of us.
Okay.
And so we were like best friends.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like forever. Like, you know, for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
And like obviously, you know, we would fight like any siblings do, but yeah. Then we got really close. He went to college when I was in 8th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was actually, we got a lot closer then, because then we would text every day.
Okay.
Because, like, before that, like, and because, you know, he was in a new place, so he was, like, homesick, and so, like, you know, we would text all the time and, like, FaceTime, you know, and I also started to get into basketball and, like, started listening to, like, a lot of rap, which, like, those were, like, the 2 biggest things that connected us.
Yeah.
And, you know, most, like when I look through our old text messages, like, 90% of the conversations are like, have you heard this new album, or about a Knicks game?
Okay.
Like that's most of it.
That's awesome that you had that thing to connect you though. So did your older brother get you into smoking, or was that just...
So it wasn't really him that got me into smoking. It was
yeah,
more just that, like, It was that
Yeah, he was a real piece of shit. God rest his
like,
soul.
No, we did smoke, but it was more like I knew that he did that.
Yeah.
And so like I guess he probably started in like 9th or 10th grade, you know, and so I knew that him and his friends did that, so I wasn't like like I wasn't like afraid of it. I was like, oh, when I'm that age, I'm gonna do that.
That's interesting. You literally used the term "I was not afraid of it" because I remember getting to college, and I knew everyone in my family drank. I didn't really drink until like I did drink, but I didn't go like start drinking until college. And it was interesting because the very like the second or third college like little get together I was at, someone brought out cocaine, and I was like. I told this before, but it's like it was so weird because it was right there, and it's like you only see this kind of stuff in the movies. But to what you just said, I was terrified of it because I was scared because I didn't know anybody who did it.
Yeah.
The only story I remembered was Len Bias, and I wasn't even around for that. I just heard that story.
Yeah.
So I was just like, and I was playing college football at the time, and I was like, I want nothing to do with this. But I had the opposite because not with coke, but with weed because you're like, oh, my brother smokes, people smoke, like this is not a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely had like I've only done cocaine twice, but like definitely the first time that I saw it, I was like kind of freaked out. That was in
What
college.
happened there? Hang on,
the first time I saw coke.
Yeah.
I think
this always blows because as someone who did it a lot over time, I'm always blown away by this.
I don't remember like which. So I think there was one time that I was at a party freshman year of college, and there were people like in the bathroom doing cocaine, and then another time that I was just going to like hang in a friend's dorm.
Yeah.
And like I just went in there and him and his friend were just like doing lines and like didn't even offer it to me, which I'm glad that they didn't because I don't know if I would have done it or not, but like, I was definitely.
So you've never actually done it?
I've done it twice.
Oh, okay. Because I remember you said that, but then you gave 2 examples of seeing it, so I didn't know.
So those are the first, and then the only times that I've done it were my senior year of college. I was at a New Year's party with my camp friends in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And I was just like blackout drunk. Like I lost track of how much I was drinking.
That's how it always happens.
At 15 shots. And so
damn, that's a lot. I'm an alcoholic, and that's a lot for me.
I know. And then I was just like people started doing it, and I was like, all right, I'll try it because like at that point I was like getting to the point where I was like, I want to have done it. Like I don't even want to do cocaine, but I just want to be like, yeah, I've done
in case
it.
you're ever on a podcast about drinking and drug stories.
Exactly, yeah.
That's the one thing I will bring up when it comes to cocaine. The most common response to people who have done it at least once is I was blackout drunk. Mm-hmm. But that's also one of the worst ways to do it. Only because you cannot get the effect. All it does is sober you up a little bit, like mentally. Like you don't get the full effect of what it really does if you're that wasted, if that makes sense. So it's almost like when you drink on a full stomach. It's like you could drink on a full stomach, but it's not going to hit you as hard as if you're, kind of hungry. If that makes sense.
Yes, no, I do know what you mean. Yeah, I think also I was so drunk that like I didn't really remember most of the night. So like when people were like, "How was it?" I was like, "I have no idea."
Yeah, so it's almost like a wasted experience. So basically, what I'm saying is,
experience.
You should try coke now. Yeah, hey, you should try coke now.
Well, so now
when you're completely sober.
I've done it one other time, and this time was I was visiting.
Just trying to be the worst influence ever.
Just trying to get. You're just like, well, what I was doing when I was 25. So let me get you on the same
I was
wave.
in jail at 25, so you don't want to be on that wavelength.
I don't think I do. No. But yeah, the other time I did coke was when I visited my cousin in Dallas, and like in Dallas, every apartment building has a pool.
Yeah, it's just like Florida.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so we went to like his friend had a pool party. And we were just like drinking all day from like noon onward, and it was like 9, and then so we were about to go out.
Yeah.
And like everyone was just so tired, which
you mix the sun too. You're so
right,
dehydrated.
Yeah,
you're just
exactly.
It's not even a wasted. It's like you said. It's a legit tired.
Yeah, we were like I wasn't even like really drunk anymore at that point because we just been drinking all day. I was just tired.
Yeah.
And then somebody like got coke, and we all did it, and then like went to this bar. And then I that time I like definitely enjoyed it and was like, all right, this is what cocaine feels like.
Yeah, there you go.
I was like, I started dancing on this table, And then these 3 girls just came over and started dancing with me, and I was like, "This is the coolest I've ever been."
Yeah,
I've
right
never
now.
done anything this cool in my life. And then, and then,
You hear that, kids? On
cocaine.
Cocaine never
Cocaine
done
is
anything.
cool. Yeah, and then but yeah, and then I got yelled at to get off the table.
By the bar owner?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. They're always the party poopers when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I did want to. We got a little off track from where
Right.
we were going, but that's why I love doing this show. I told you before we started recording. There are so many times I make sure people bring a list now, and the listeners know why. But there's so many times where we'll start talking about something, and then they're just like, "Yeah," and then we were doing this and that, and then I broke my arm and got arrested.
Right.
But anyway, back to this other story, and I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa!" Like, let's go back to that. So I'm glad we got sidetracked with the cocaine story. But you had a couple things about edibles.
Yeah.
Now you had one incident in Times Square. What happened there? Was this when you were living here? When you were visiting?
No,
what
so
happened?
this was when I was in college, and me and one of my other friends from home were visiting our friend who went to Hofstra, and so we were staying with him on Long Island.
Okay.
And then we took edibles we were coming into
How
the
long
city.
ago was this?
This was 4 years ago.
Okay, so edibles are a thing. Like, it's not like 10 years ago. Whenever.
Yeah. No, so it was 4 years ago. So I was like, it was 4 or 5 years ago. I was 20 or 21.
Yeah.
And then, so we took them, and they were 100 milligram THC pills.
Okay.
Which I think none of us realized that is an insane amount of THC.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. Like normally, like when I do edibles now, I do like 5 or 10 milligrams.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, this feels nice.
Yeah.
Which is a great thing about weed being legal more places is that you can know how much you're doing.
I tell people that all the time. With the amount of people who are being poisoned by fentanyl, the amount of drugs that I've done, not knowing, just doing them, like, it's so much easier to like what's the word I'm looking for? Moderate.
Yeah.
When it's legal, because
That's why
then
it should all be legal.
Yeah, because then people can come in and say, okay, this, and this. Like, the amount of people that are dying because things are laced with fentanyl now, it's almost like you almost have to legalize this kind of stuff now because, just let people die. But I mean, it's crazy to me. So now that it's legal, like you said, you could be like, okay, this is 100 milligrams, this is 50 milligrams, and you trust it because it's at a store, it's regulated, you know what it is.
Yeah. But this was not at a store. This was some guy who, when he gave them to us, said, "Yeah, I usually take 2 of these and smoke a bowl." So like,
and they're pills.
Yeah, and I cannot imagine being on 2 of these.
2 of them and a bowl.
Yeah. So, which is why like drug dealers are never people you should get advice from on how to do your drugs.
Absolutely.
But like, yeah, so we took it right before we left, and then took the train into the city, like thinking like, okay, we'll be like coming up like while we're getting off the train.
Yeah.
Nothing. Like 3-4 hours go by, nothing. We're just like, I guess those didn't work. I guess like they're just duds.
Yeah.
And then we're just walking around the city. We don't.
How many pills did you take?
We just took 1 each.
Okay.
But then they start to hit.
Okay.
Like 4 hours later, which is like
slow release.
Usually it's like an hour, like half hour to an hour, and then you're like, oh shit, now I'm high as fuck. But like this was like 3 or 4 hours later. We start walking and then accidentally end up in Times Square, and it was like I don't even know how to describe it other than like it felt like I was walking through the internet. It was the most terrifying thing ever. Because, like, Times Square is just awful, like, sober. Like, dead sober, Times Square is a horrible place to walk through. But
I say that all the time. Savannah's work is, like, you could, if you wanted to get there, you could go through Times Square. And one time I accidentally went through Times Square, and I remember texting her, like, this is disgusting. Like, I don't know how I even got here.
Yeah,
like,
it's
I
awful.
hate this.
And this was in December, so there was already like Christmas stuff up.
Oh my God,
and so
it's cold as
even
shit.
more people, yeah. And so we are just like walking, and then like somehow managed to get out of Times Square, and then I'm trying to remember like more detail. I can't even like think of more details.
No, that was walking through the internet, and it was terrifying. It's perfect.
Okay, yeah, and then we were trying to find a place.
Keep dropping these great lines. I keep changing the title of the episode every like 10 minutes.
we were trying to find a place to eat, and my friend was like, we should go to the bar that the bar from How I Met Your Mother is based off of.
Okay.
And then we were like, is this a theme restaurant? And he's like, no, it's a real bar that they based the bar in the show off of.
Yeah.
And we get there, and it's kind of a theme restaurant. Like all the cocktails are like like the Barney Stinson, like they're all like named after How I Met Your Mother. But we get there, we get food. I got fish and chips, the best tartar sauce I've ever had.
There you go. Huge shout out.
Yeah, shout out tartar sauce. I don't remember the name of this place, but like
McLaren's, isn't that what it's called?
It's
in the
called
show?
McLaren's in the show. It's a different Irish name.
Whoa, with the Mick.
Whoa, hey. But so yeah,
it's called fucking Mix. That's what it's called.
It's called Mick fucking alcoholics. But I ordered more. I asked for more tartar sauce, which I don't think anyone has ever done before.
Yeah, if it's good tartar sauce, it's good tartar sauce.
So and there was a college basketball game on, and we were watching it, and there was like a minute left, and it's a tied game, and we finished our food and we paid. And like normally you would just be like, all right, let's watch the rest of the game. It's a sports bar, so we're gonna watch the rest of the game and then leave. But we were so like high out of our minds that we were like, we can't. Like people are gonna notice if we like sit. We can't watch the rest of the game. I guess we'll just have to like look at the score on our phone. So then we just left.
Oh, because you paid. You were like paranoid.
We're not allowed to stay here.
We have to get out of here. We paid. Wow, that's hilarious. So you just left. How did you get home? What happened?
We got home. We took the Long Island Railroad. And
so you were cognizant enough to be like, all right.
We were and like we were able to like get on the train, but then I like lost my ticket, and then the next morning found it in my jacket pocket, but I like couldn't find it, and so like we had to like pay a fine on the train when they came to look at tickets.
How much is that? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Because that happened to me when I was going out to Jersey. I wrote a bit about it. But I was going out to Jersey to go to our storage unit where everything was destroyed from Ida, and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna, cut the lock and throw everything away. So come and see if there's anything you can salvage." So I took the train out there, but when I first went down to the train, I didn't realize when you get your ticket, it's at a completely separate kiosk. It's not like the subway where you have to get your Metro card to get onto the subway. You can just walk onto a train. And I was like, there's no way that you can just walk onto a train. Like, obviously, there's a kiosk somewhere on the train or near the train where I can get a ticket. So I ended up on the train, and the guy, like, before the door shut, I was like, hey, where do I get my tickets? And he goes, oh, you have to go upstairs to the ticket counter. And I was like, fuck. Because I was freaking out. Like, what happens if I don't, like, do they throw you off the train? Or obviously you said you just pay a fine?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I know that for next time. You also said something about another high adventure where you stared at yourself for a while.
Oh, yeah. That was the other time that I took 100 milligram edible.
Okay. So what happened there?
So that was in college. That was my senior year. And this kid that we were friends with who just like does an insane amount of drugs.
Yeah. There's always that guy.
There's always he was like 100% like that guy. Every friend group had one.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then
I have a bit about it.
Oh, I'm sure. But yeah, so he gave us he had this, it was like a distillate of like straight up just THC. It was just like a liquid, and you just put a drop on your tongue and then like just swallow it, and like that's it.
That's
and,
it?
Yeah, and it's just like incredibly potent. And so like me and a couple of my friends did that, and then we like again, like an hour goes by, and like
you're like, now see, that's a little strange for something that you would drop right onto your tongue. I can understand a pill, like if it's a thick plastic capsule, it takes a while to digest, but for something you're dropping straight onto your tongue.
Well, it's not like it's not like acid where like it's just dissolving on your tongue, like you're swallowing it.
Yeah, but
yeah, it is still a little bit weird. But even like I should have been sketched out because of like you shouldn't take anything out of a vial.
No,
like that's not how you should be doing drugs, But yeah, so like an hour goes by, and then we go back to my place, and then we're playing Mario Kart, and so me and my roommate, one of my roommates, and this girl I was hooking up with at the time, all took it, and then my other roommate did not.
Okay.
And so then we're playing Mario Kart, and my one roommate who was not high, like just notices that like none of us are playing anymore, and like we're all just like cracking up at like the Mario Kart music and like looking at the screen. And then he like we start to realize like, oh shit, we're like insanely high.
Yeah.
So then like my one roommate, like she goes to bed, and then
what a waste of a high.
no, it was like a high where like I need to be alone. It was that kind of a high.
Yeah.
But then so I'm like with this girl who like I was friends with, and like we'd hooked up a couple times, and then like we're just hanging out like talking, and I was just like I'm way too high to have sex or like do anything, but I don't know how to like say that without being weird. So we're just like talking for like 45 minutes, and then I think like eventually she's like, I'm gonna go home. And I was like, okay, yeah. And then I remember I like didn't know what to, so I like rubbed her hair.
There you go. Get some.
Yeah, and then we like made out, but it was so awkward, which probably explains why we never hooked up again.
Yeah, that was the last.
That was the last of it. Yeah, and then I remember like going upstairs and just staring at my reflection. Like I brushed my teeth and was like staring at my reflection in the mirror straight up for an hour. And then you know how like sometimes you can like, you know, if you like sort of squint your eyes and like look at like the bridge of your nose and like look in the mirror, it kind of looks like it'll go from looking like you have one eye to looking like you have three eyes.
Yeah, cross-eyed. Yeah.
Just kept on doing that and like cracking up, like laughing hysterically
for over an hour, just doing this.
Yes, and then like looking at myself and being like, I look like I could be a teacher. I don't know why that was my thought.
That was the thought.
Well, I'm like,
I could teach.
I was like, I was like, you know when like you look at yourself and you're high and you're like, is this what my face looks like?
Yeah, I do. I do know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and
this is my face. Look
like,
at my nose.
I was just like at the time was like casually like sleeping with two different people at the same time, which I'd never done before, and was like. Which is like cool. It's a fun thing, you know, for people to do. But like I had never done that before, so I was like, is this how like it starts where like people have like secret families and secret homes? And I'm like spiraling into this terrible fantasy, but like the weirdest part of it is like, in what world could I afford a home?
Yeah.
You know, like that was the part where I was like, how does that make any sense? But yeah, no, and then like the full next day. And, like, texting, like, both, like, that girl and my roommate, like, the next day. Like, none of us went to class. And, like, we were all just still high. And, like, it wasn't until, like, that evening that I, like, felt normal.
Oh, wow.
And, like, I've never done acid, but I've done shrooms twice. And this was more intense than either of those.
Damn.
Yeah.
When did you do shrooms? Was that, were you, like, at a festival or out in the woods?
I did,
because everyone always says you're supposed to take them in the woods.
Yeah, which I've never done. I do want to do that.
Yeah.
Because I've never like taken them and just like been in nature, or at like a festival. Which those are the two places that people.
So you just like took them at the apartment?
I took them my freshman year of college. I lived in a suite with like I was in this program, this integrated fine arts program. So just like me and all my like artsy friends took shrooms one time, and it was funny because like. It was like the spring semester, so we'd known each other for a little bit, but we weren't like
super close.
Yeah. So like it probably shouldn't have been as good as it was. But we just took it, and I, you know, in like probably like the most stereotypical like college freshman doing shrooms for the first time fashion, I was like, we should listen to every Tame Impala album. And then we did, which at the time was 3 albums. We listened to them all in order.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. What a day.
Which is, and it, you know, actually this one we came up, we weren't playing Mario Kart, we were playing Smash.
Oh, okay.
But, you know, Nintendo games. But yeah, I remember definitely trying to think if there was anything like crazy that happened. We were sitting outside, there was an amphitheater like right outside of my building.
Is this with the weed or the mushrooms?
This is the mushrooms.
Okay.
And so we were just like all sitting there, and everybody else saw like these jets fly by. And I did not. Okay. And so, like, I don't know if they all, like, hallucinated the same thing or, like, if one person saw it and everybody was like, yeah, definitely. And
that seems more realistic.
Or if I just was so in my own head that I didn't notice it. Which is probably, that's probably what it was.
I was going to say, that could have been it.
That's probably it. But, yeah, and then, so my one friend who's, like, she's very good at drawing. She's a great artist.
Yeah,
so
fine arts.
Yeah,
we got it. You guys are creative. We got it.
But she was just drawing like without even looking at it, and then it was like beautiful. So she started crying, and then she hands like a pad of paper to my friend Tyler, and he's like, I'm not like good at drawing. Like this is not gonna be good. And she was like, no, just do it, just try it. And then so he's doing it. He's like, it's not gonna be good, it's not gonna be good. And then like 5 minutes later we all like look at it, he like shows to us and we're like, yeah, it's not that good.
Tyler, you were right, it's garbage.
Started, like dying laughing.
That's hilarious.
Another one of my friends like wrote this poem. My friend John wrote this poem that was just like I for like 10 lines, alternating between the letter I and EYE. And then it was like IKEA. That was the whole thing. And
wow. And yeah, that was the fine arts program.
And so that's what happens when you put a bunch of
artsy kids with mushrooms.
College freshmen on mushrooms. It's exactly what you would think it would be.
Yeah, it's exactly
terrible
what
to be
you think
around.
it would be. So you have a lot of really chill stories.
Yeah.
You did have one violent story.
Yeah.
About getting into a fight. Was this one of the only fights you've been in?
This was the only drunk fight that I think I've been in.
Now it's interesting because you talk about like doing the artsy stuff and going to school for the arts and everything, but we met playing basketball and you get pretty intense out on the court.
Yeah.
So
I've gotten into a lot of basketball fights.
Okay.
Yeah. I've worked on my temper a lot to where like that hasn't really happened since like junior year of high school.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually got kicked off of my basketball team my junior year of high school
for fighting.
Getting into a fight in like our
with
third
teammates
game
or
of the
with
season.
opposing teams.
With an opposing teammate. So I played for the Jewish Community Center.
Okay.
And so we were like the only Jewish team in our league. And then this one guy like was just like we were guarding each other, so he's like pushing me around the whole game. And like calling me a bitch, and then kept on like saying like anti-Semitic stuff.
Oh, come on, that's not.
Yeah, and so
I'm all
I
for
was
trash
like,
talk, but let's not bring religion into this.
Yeah, and so that was like fucked up. And then it was like towards the end of the game, like 3 minutes left, and he was being super physical with me and talking shit the whole time. And so we were going up for a rebound, like boxing each other out, and I just like really pushed him.
Oh, I
to
thought you
the
were gonna
side.
give him the bow.
No, I mean, yeah, it was like a hard elbow,
Yeah.
but like nothing like something that's like probably just like a foul.
Yeah.
You know, but like the refs.
Nothing egregious.
Yeah, the refs weren't calling anything, but it was clearly like, you know, I wouldn't say I started it because he was aggressive the whole game, but so I pushed him out of the way.
It.
I pushed him out of the way, and then he like pushes me, I push him back, and then he punches me, and then so I hit him back, and then we get separated, and then they let go of him. And then he punches me right across the face in the ear. And then
while they're holding you back?
Yeah. And then I like run out of the gym. And then I just like went and sat outside and, you know, to like calm down a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they ended the game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is crazy. Because it was like a close game too. But like instead of just ejecting both of us, they were like, we're calling it.
Tempers are flaring.
Yeah,
we're calling it.
The game is over. Like
God,
neither team wins.
Shit. Yeah, and that's the thing I noticed playing basketball because we play with a bunch of comedians, and my biggest thing is I don't know basketball rules. So the only time I've ever played basketball was when I played college football. A lot of the football players would go down to the outdoor courts and play at night just to like run and have fun. And then the other time that I played basketball a lot was when I was in jail. So those are the two times I've played. So there's no fouls called. Like,
right. Well, those
play.
Also. Those sound like the two most aggressive ways to
exactly.
play basketball, but with football players in their time off, and then in jail. Like,
but that's the thing is, so I don't know. I never learned basketball.
So you never played
rules.
like organized basketball.
Exactly. Like I played one time for like a Y league, but I never played because it's when I was like younger and I was out of shape. I didn't hit my growth spurt until like basically college. So now that we play, I don't want to be too physical, but it's very easy. Like if someone accidentally gives you an elbow to the face or tries to hard pick you and stuff, all of a sudden I'll flip that switch where it's like, oh no, fuck all of you. Like I'll punch you in the goddamn throat.
Right,
like are you out of your fucking mind?
Yeah, and that's why. So I try like, you know, when I play basketball now, I try to not like talk shit and like be like super aggressive because I like, you know, I play hard, but like I want to keep my cool. I don't want to like because also like once you start like elbowing people, like that's when like, because then it's like, okay, we're not calling fouls. I'm gonna do the same thing to you.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And that's why like that's why I always call fouls on myself. Like I'm always like, that was a foul. I got you. Like I hit you. Like it's your ball.
And that's the other thing too is like I don't know. So like I literally don't know the rules. So one of the guys. A lot of times will do this thing where he'll go up to his teammate and like grab his waistband. So like I have to go around him. I can't cut through him. And that's a totally legal thing to do. But what I was doing in the game was I was just lowering my shoulder and bowling like through them, like going through them. And then at the end of the game, he like was kind of huffing and puffing at me. Like, you can't do that. And I was like, I don't fucking know. Like, you're in my way. I'm on offense. I'm trying to get to the ball. Like, I'm just going to go through you. Like, why is that illegal? And he's like, yeah, that's a foul.
Yeah, well, that's also the thing about pickup basketball is that people always do that where at the end they'll be like, yo, you're foul. And it's like, then call the foul.
Yeah, like I have no idea.
The rule is call your own fouls. Call a foul when it happens.
Yeah, because I don't know. Because in my head, I go, oh, well, if I'm going for the ball, I should be able to do anything I want.
Right.
Like in football, if you're going for the ball,
right, yeah.
you can fucking knock someone over as long as you're going for the ball. So when I go for a rebound and stuff, a lot of times, like I'll throw out, like not on purpose, but like I just am like, I'm getting this rebound. And so I'll get it and I come down and I like will have my elbows out and stuff. And they're like, at the end of the game, they'll be like, you can't do that. And I'm like, tell me in the because I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to get. I could see what you're saying, like that temper, but this is the only drunk fight that you've been in, you said. So set the scene. Where are we?
So
how old are you?
This is in Vermont. It's
at college?
Yeah, it's on my 20th birthday.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of what happened that night. How did we get there? So
how did we get here?
How did we get here? So it was it was me and my girlfriend at the time. We were going to meet up with my friend at this party that he texted me about, and he actually gave me the wrong address, but somehow we ended up at the right place because there was this girl throwing up outside, and
we're here.
Well, my girlfriend, her thing was that she just like loved to talk to like drunk girls who were throwing up and like talk them through it.
Really?
Yeah.
Aw.
she's in nursing school now.
I was gonna say
finished,
I knew you were gonna fucking say that.
So it makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we like get there, she goes to like talk to her, and then I see a couple of my friends coming outside, and I'm like, oh hey, like what's up, guys? Talking to them, and then this guy.
Now, are you drunk at this point? Because it is your birthday.
Yes, I am drunk at this point. So then this guy like follows them out and starts screaming at them. He's like, you guys got to get the fuck out of here. Like, fuck you. You got to get the fuck out. And so I don't, and to this day, I have no idea what happened that provoked that.
Oh, you still don't know?
No, I still don't know. I've like, honestly, just thinking about it, I'm like, I never found out what happened.
Damn.
That. But so then they're like, all right, cool, man. Like, no worries. We're leaving, And
I so badly want to know what happened.
Yeah. Fuck, I gotta text my friend at some point and figure out if he remembers.
Next Sunday when we go to play basketball, I'll be like, hey man,
yeah,
threw up on the counter.
But,
okay, got it.
But anyway, yeah.
So he's being aggro, yelling at them.
and then they turn around and then he kicks my friend in the back, and my friend turns around and he's like, dude, what the fuck? And then he punches him across the face.
So he was looking for a fight.
Yeah, this guy was clearly like. That's why I don't even think anything happened. I think it was just like his house and he didn't know them.
Yeah.
And he was like looking for a fight, and so he started one.
I can't stand people who
it's the worst. And so he punches him straight across the face, and then I go up to him and I'm like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, what are you doing? And then he grabs me, both hands around my throat.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah. Both hands around my throat. And I had a mason jar full of cookies in my hand because my friend had given them to me as a birthday present.
Present.
And
you do,
as you do when you're in Vermont, you give mason jars full of cookies to your friends.
Then someone.
So I hit him on his head with it, and then he falls down.
Did you shatter the mason jar?
No, the mason jar didn't shatter at all.
Those things are fucking real. Vermont mason jars. Those things are thick.
And And then
so hang on a second. Both hands around your throat. Do you side swipe him? Do you like bring it down like a hammer? How do you hit him?
I side swipe.
Okay, so you pull it up and hit him across the face.
I hit him and I hit him with the side of it, like probably in the side of the head. He fell down. I think it knocked him out because then I heard he went to the hospital.
Fuck. Yeah. That's what you get trying to choke someone that you don't even know.
I mean, normally I would feel bad for sending someone to the hospital, but he did start it.
Yeah, well, and he was looking for, and that's the thing that pisses me off is like, now, and I'm sure this has been happening forever, but like you could someone could start a fight, but if you fuck them up, they'll press charges against you. They could sue you. And it's like, you went looking for this, man. Like, this is what you wanted because you didn't win. Like, it always reminds me of that scene. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Boondock Saints.
I have not.
Okay, there's a scene where they get into a bar fight, and then later in the movie, the Russian gangsters come back to their apartment with guns. And they're like, it was just a fucking bar fight, man. Like,
right.
Well, you just lost. Like, chill. And every time I hear something like this, that's what I think of. Because it's like, you started this fight. It's a little scuffle.
Yeah.
And now, like, you're going to the hospital. God knows what could have happened. So what ends up happening? Did you just leave? And
I just left. I remember we started to walk away, and then I ran back.
They're coming for you right now.
Oh, shit. I thought the statute of limitations was up.
Oh, yeah, for a fight, it's 2 years, I think.
But yeah, I remember I ran back to grab the cookies.
Did you?
Yeah.
So you dropped the jar, obviously, when you hit it.
Yeah, I dropped the jar. It fell, and then I went back and grabbed it. And then...
what is his... Do you remember what his kind of look was? Was he, like, sprawled out? Was he, like, twitching? Was he, like...
I don't remember.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember at all.
You didn't take time to, like, observe your work?
No.
Like, fuck you.
No. Yeah, and then we walked away. And then I actually...
What happened with your girlfriend at the time? Was she still, like, coaching the other girl up? Or did she see all this?
No, she saw all this, and... Well, and, like, when it happened, she was, like, trying to pull me away before anything even started.
Yeah.
Because she knew that I, like, had a temper and, like, that, that I would, like, come to the defense of my friend and was just, like, didn't want me to get hurt, But, yeah, and then we actually ran into my mom.
Wow.
Who was in town visiting me for my birthday, and then was just, like, she, like, brought our dog and, like, was, like, taking the dog for, like, a late night walk. And
you ran into her?
We ran into her. Leaving this party. Which
awesome.
is, yeah.
Mom?
Yeah.
You did mention this party happened on your birthday. Something else happened on another birthday that you had sent me a message about, or in the list, about crying.
Oh, yeah.
Blackout. Which birthday was that?
That was my 21st birthday.
Okay, so then fast forward a year.
So that was the next year. So that was... I was like with like a different girl who
just burning through them.
Not like we weren't like dating. She lived in Pittsburgh, but was a girl that I had like known from camp, and so we were like,
okay,
it was one of those things.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. But she was visiting me, and I was having a party.
Because you're 21. It's a big
21. Deal. And then also, part of the crying was because my brother died at 20.
Oh yeah.
And so like, kind of every birthday from 20 onward is a little weird.
Yeah, that's got to be hard.
And he didn't die from like drugs or anything. He had it's called an AVM, arterial venal malformation, I think is what it stands for.
Heart?
Basically, no, it's brain. It's basically like something ruptures in your brain.
Just out of nowhere?
Yeah, and typically like maybe I'm remembering wrong, but like I read somewhere that like if it like doesn't happen between the ages of 10 and 40, like you're like fine.
That's a huge window.
Yeah, it's a huge window. And it's like it's pretty hard to discover. Like you'd have to like get an MRI of your brain, which like unless you have like a terrible concussion, there would be no reason to do that.
Yeah, so it's normally a CAT scan, not an MRI.
Yeah. So that's why like it was never detected.
Damn.
But and also he died a week after my birthday also, and so and he had been in the hospital, and like he was studying abroad in Switzerland and was in like put into a medically induced coma it was on September 11th of 2012, and then so my birthday was September 17th, and so
happy belated birthday.
Thank you. And then he died on the 24th.
I don't mean to laugh, but
no, it's like what other reaction is there?
Yeah. Well, and that's why I love doing this show, because whenever I message people, I always say about the list, I always go your best or worst stories, because my entire set, everything about my comedy since I've gotten sober is about terrible things that have happened, be it rehab, jail, attempted suicide, people I know dying from drugs and alcohol and stuff. And I've mentioned this to you before, but it's like, it's either you get it and you're in on what we're doing, or you don't get it and it's fucking a TED Talk. It's like a PSA about drugs and alcohol for an hour. So my response to all this stuff always is laughter, which is why we do comedy.
Yeah, exactly.
It takes a sick, twisted individual to try to make jokes about this kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, I heard something that was on I don't know if you ever listened to Andrew Santino's podcast.
Yeah, I love it.
But yeah, did you listen to the one with Howie Mandel?
No, I did not.
So yeah, so on that one, one thing that I really liked that Howie Mandel said was that like people will think they have a good sense of humor because they laugh and they find things funny, but like that's not having a good sense of humor. Is being able to find something that isn't funny and find like a funny thing in it.
Yeah,
and
Shane
find a
Gillis
way to make that funny.
Talks about it on his new special where he goes,
exactly.
There is a funniest of this, like a school shooting. There's a funniest school shooting, and obviously I don't want to burn it, and he does a great job with it. But it's like that's true, and that's something I've always really held steadfast to. And in comics, true comics, I always say there's people who do comedy, and then there's comedians. There's a difference. There's people who go to open mics and do comedy,
right?
But they're not comics. They're telling street jokes, or they're like, oh, this was funny at the office. Let me go try it at an open mic. And then there's people who love comedy and do comedy. Someone like you, as soon as you graduate, you go, I'm moving to New York to pursue this. That's a comedian.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me because they always get it when you do something dark. I have a whole bit, but it's like one of those things where it's just like, yeah, I can make fun of that. Because finding the humor in that is what I do. So it's interesting. Like I said, that's a long-winded way of me saying, I'm sorry I laughed about the brother thing.
It's and I mean, and I've talked about like
I gotta take that part out. My fucking family hates when I talk about family stuff on the podcast. Yeah,
that's fair. Yeah, my mom is a writer, and most of what she writes is like personal essays. So, you know, that's already like out the window of like having, you know, like you can't talk about family stuff.
See, and it's interesting you say that because there's a lot of people in my family who obviously are like, they don't care, or they're just like, that's Brennan. Brennan will, if it happened to him or it happened around him, he'll talk about it. Like that's what I'm an open book. People like at my work all the time will like offer me a wine or something, and I'm like, no, I don't drink. And then they're like, oh, like you know, we don't have to. And I'm like, you can ask me anything you want. Like I don't give a shit.
And I'm the same way. And like I try and be like, you know, more conscious of it if I'm telling stories that like involve other people.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
Like, you know, sensitive to things that like they might not want other people to know about. You know, but like, yeah, if it's about me, I don't care.
Yeah, I'm the same exact way. So speaking of about you, 21st birthday. Let's get back to this story because I derailed us.
Right. Yeah. So I was feeling like anxious about the party and about turning 21. And so this girl, like, she had a Xanax prescription.
Yeah.
And she gave me 2 Xanax. And I'd taken Xanax like a few times before and always really, you know, enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Because, you know, how could you not?
You know what's great on Xanax?
Alcohol?
Yeah, baby.
So, yeah. Hello, dog.
Maya agrees with us.
Yeah, but yeah. So I took a couple Xanax and then drank a lot, and kind of blacked out, you know. But the things I do remember were that I was just a lot of crying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
After everything we talked about.
Yeah. I guess it's not.
So what happened? Did you lock yourself in a room? Are there a bunch of people over?
It was like after everyone like left, and it was just like me in bed with this girl.
Okay, so you held it together for the party.
Yeah, and I think I felt fine for the party, and then it kind of just all like came out.
Yeah, hit you at once.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Last story I wanted to talk about, since we are getting to that time. You already know which one it is, so take it. How did it happen? What? Speaking of dying and drugs and alcohol and all this kind of stuff, what? Tell this story.
So this story, it's a story where I said that I was smoked weed with Mac Miller in his studio, and it actually is very much related to my brother because that's how I know Mac Miller. Is
he from Pittsburgh?
He's from so I grew up in Harrisburg. but our camp was like a Pittsburgh JCC camp.
Okay.
And so Mac Miller went to that camp.
Oh,
and
okay.
him and my brother are the same age, and they were like really close friends. And so, you know, and I was only there like, cause I was like 10 when he was like 15 the last summer he went, last summer Mac went. And so, you know, I knew him a little bit then because I knew he was friends with my brother. And like, and then it was like that year that he started rapping and putting out music as Easy Mac.
Okay.
So this was in like 2007, you know, and
Easy Mac.
yeah, and I remember my brother showed me his first mixtape, and he was like, "Do you like this?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's pretty good." And he was like, "Yeah, it's Malcolm," and I was like, "No, it's not." And he was like, "Yes, it is." And he like showed me the album cover, and I was like, "Oh, that is him." Yeah.
Wow.
And I remember like showing it to like all my friends and being like, "Yeah, this is my brother's friend. Like, he's gonna be famous."
That's crazy.
And like, which is I mean, like, you know, I was right, but also like, I totally would have said that about if I knew anyone that was like making music.
Putting out albums, or mixtapes.
And you know, and then like, so he's, you know, 15, 16 around that time, and then like each year, you know, he puts out a mixtape. Then the next one, you know, has like gets some like blog coverage, and the one after that like has a Wiz Khalifa feature on it, because you know they went to the same high school.
Okay.
And so, you know, and then the next one after that was Kids, which was like his like.
That's the big one.
That's the big one. That's the one that really blew him up. You know, and then the one after that like had the song Donald Trump on it, you know, and so like he just continues to get more famous. Like
every album he puts out or mixtape he puts out, he's growing.
And growing, and you know, which is like what continued to the time that he died, which is like obviously like, you know, I'm sad about it because that's somebody I was friends with, and somebody, you know, and it's just a person died, but also like one of the, you know, tragedies of any time like an artist of that caliber dies is that like you're like, oh shit, like he was only getting better, like and he was only 26. Like, just imagine, like, you know, what stuff he would have come up with.
That's a weird realization when you're like, so they're just done?
Yeah.
Like, they were doing so well, and now it's just over?
Right, and then even, like you know, the album that came out, like, about a year after he died, like, was, you know, which I think is, like, his best album. And, yeah, so anyway, so I knew him through my brother, and, but I hadn't, you know, really like talked to him at all, like since, you know, I was like 10.
Yeah.
But him and my brother were still close to the time my brother died, and so he came to my brother's funeral in Harrisburg.
I was gonna say because your brother died before he did.
Mm-hmm. So he came to my brother's funeral in Harrisburg.
Spoiler alert.
And then you know, and I saw him there and like talked to him, and he was very nice.
And at this point.
This point, he's 20.
Yeah, I was going to say,
so at this
he's
point,
the same age as your brother.
Yeah, so he's put out, and you know, I don't know if you're like how big a fan of his music you are.
I'm not a huge fan. I am aware of him and his music, but I'm not like a huge fan.
So for like anybody listening that is a fan of him, so this is about like a year after, or I guess it's about like after Blue Slide Park and Macadelic. So Macadelic was the most recent thing that he had put out.
Okay.
And so then he's working on the album Watching Movies with the Sound Off, which I was one of the first people to hear that, the first version.
Leak that mixtape, dog.
So he comes to the funeral, and then after, you know, then he leaves because he's like doing a show that night. You know, he's on tour, but like stops in Harrisburg to come to my brother's
just to
funeral.
go to the funeral.
Yeah, and then he DMs me on Twitter and sends me his number, and like tweets at me publicly. And like tells me like reach out anytime, and then so at that, you know, then we like develop a friendship from that point.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know, we keep in touch a little bit. We text about music. You know, he asked me how I'm doing, and you know, and then he started sending me songs. And so on his album Watch Moves with the Sound Off, there's a song called Remember. And so my brother's name's Ruben Eli Mitrani, and so his initials are REM, and so the REM is capital in the song.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, and so that's you know, he named the song that, and actually named his record label Remember Music after him.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and
damn, so your brother was a huge influence on him.
Yeah, he references him on some other songs too. But yeah, and so he would, you know, while he was working on that album, he would send me stuff that he was working on, and like sent me like, you know, an original version of it that, you know, I have somewhere, you know,
So, yeah.
I think it's on like my old iPod.
Yeah.
You know, like if I ever plug it in and charge it, like I can find that. But yeah, so it has like a couple songs that never came out. And yeah, so he, and then
How did you guys end up in the same studio?
Right. So then so the first time, that actually wasn't the first time that I smoked with him. The first time was when I saw him in Colorado. So my brother went to Colorado College, and they had a music festival every year called Llama-Palooza. And so Mac agreed to perform at it for free.
Oh, wow.
This year, because as a tribute to him. And so I went there for that weekend, and it was just staying with my brother's friends, and my parents were there as well. But so then that night, me and a friend of Mac and my brother's who went to Colorado as well. Yeah, he went to the University of Colorado in Boulder. He came up for the concert, and then we all hung out in Mac's hotel room with him and his DJ Clockwork, who's one of the funniest people I've ever met.
Really?
Yeah, he's hilarious. And he played us Oh, and then there was another guy there were two friends from camp were there as well of his. But that's not important. But so he plays us finally he just finished Watch Moves with the Sound Off, plays us it in order, we smoke and listen to it in his hotel room.
Damn.
And then pass out later.
Yeah.
And so that was, and then I wonder if it was before that the first time I was in the studio with him, or if it was before that or after that. But yeah, one time when I was in Pittsburgh, me and my friend who I was staying with, we went to his studio because he was also in town.
He had a studio in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I think it wasn't his studio, but it was his producer's studio.
Yeah.
And so he would record out when he was visiting his parents.
Yeah.
And so he records this song, and that's never come out, and probably will never come out.
Yeah.
And start to finish, we were there for the beat being made. He writes his verses. I watched him do the whole thing. And
was it good?
Oh, it was incredible. Yeah, it was so good. And then he drives me and my friend home at 5 a.m.
Damn.
And at this time, I was thought I wanted to be a rapper and was making music. And he actually offered. He was like, if you're really serious, I can send you beats and you can come live in LA with me. And I was like, oh, I don't know.
I'm not that serious.
I was I'm 16. I don't know if that's a good idea.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't know if my parents would be okay with me just moving out and living with a rapper.
Yeah.
Even if it is somebody as nice as you.
Well, yeah, and he was a super sweet guy, but he did. I mean, his history with all that kind of stuff is well documented. One
of the sweetest, just kindest, most generous people that I've ever met, but also an addict.
Yeah.
And also. And I guess there's an overlap between addicts and stoners, but he was both.
Yeah.
Those are two different things, but he was.
Those are two completely
different things, but he was both.
In the Venn diagram, he's in
the middle, where he had all of the attributes of both. So he had the addict behavior, but also the stoner tendencies of just being
chill,
so absent-minded with everything that wasn't music.
Yeah.
He worked so hard on music, but. Just the normal day-to-day stuff. He's
just
so out of it. But, and then so the next time, this was about a year or two later, so I was 17 or 18, and I'm in Pittsburgh visiting some friends, and he happens to be in Pittsburgh that weekend as well.
Yeah.
And so me and my friends go to this concert, the XX, and then he invites me to come to the studio, and I was like, is it okay if 6 of my friends come?
Oh, for real?
Yeah, and he said, yeah, sure.
What?
Yeah, and then, or I guess maybe there were 5 of them, 6 including me, but whatever. Either way, crazy.
There's a lot of people.
Either way, there are 6 or 7, 17, 18-year-olds in this studio, and so my mom, who was also in Pittsburgh for the weekend, picks us up from the concert, drives us to the studio. Says hi, then leaves, and then he just packs a bowl, and it's just he takes a hit, and he's like, hey, if you guys want to smoke, feel free, and there's more
help
weed
yourselves
if you want to pack in more. His producer was so annoyed, he didn't say anything, but we could totally tell he was like, why the fuck are all these teenagers in my studio?
Yeah.
And so we're just there until 7 a.m. and he's in and out of the studio with this beat playing the whole time. Again, another song that he records, start to finish, never released.
So he just once he gets the beat, he'll just keep the beat on a loop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's typically. And I have some other friends that are musicians and
that's what
and
they
rappers,
do.
and so like that's typically what they do, especially for like rappers where like if they're like writing to the beat, you'll like keep it on a loop.
Yeah.
And I think that like maybe he was like hopping into some other people's sessions because I know there were other like musicians like in different studios in the same building.
Yeah.
And he would be like in and out. And so, yeah, me and my friends were just hanging out there. Oh, and also on this day, he had just been given the key to the city of Pittsburgh.
Damn.
And so it was Mac Miller Day. And so I think somewhere I have some pictures of us like all like taking turns like holding up the key in
Fuck
the studio. Yeah. And then it's like 7 a.m. And then so he's like, oh, like, how are you guys getting home? And we were like, oh, I don't know. I think like my mom's asleep. We can't really ask her to like come pick us up. And he was like, all right. I mean, you guys can all like squeeze in my car. And it's not like a big car, but it's, so we're all like in his Mercedes.
Just fucking
squeezed
sitting on laps, squeezing in.
Like 5 people squeezed in the back seat, and then like me sitting in the front and him driving. And then he like plays us some unreleased stuff. This was like before his mixtape Faces came out. So he played us Polo Jeans and I think some other songs that, I mean, this is really just for like anybody listening that's like a fan of his music. He played us some other songs that I think were on there, maybe some stuff that didn't get released, but and then he drives us home at 7 a.m.
Just ready to get the day started.
Yeah. And then we all like just like pass out in my friend's house.
God. And so how long ago how far was that from until he died?
So that was a few years before he died.
Okay.
And then so the last time I saw him.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to is when.
The last time I saw him, I was 20.
Okay.
And so that was 2 years before he died.
Okay.
Or like a little bit less than 2 years before he died. And so I was with the same girlfriend from the previous story.
Yeah, 21, yeah.
Yeah, the girlfriend from my 20th birthday story.
Okay.
So I was with her, and we had actually just broken up a couple months earlier, but I had a ticket to see him in Montreal, which is like an hour and a half from Burlington, and my friend who I was going to go with realized his passport wasn't up to date.
Oh, shit.
And then so I was like, oh, I don't have anyone to go with. So I was like, I asked her if she wanted to go with me. And then, we went and basically just like kind of pretended we were together again for the night.
It's fun to pretend sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. We've all been there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we went to the concert, and so I think he had changed his number, and so I didn't have his number anymore. But so I DM'd him on Twitter because, we still follow each other. And I was just like, hey, man, I'm coming to your show in Montreal. And I think I DM'd him when I bought the tickets, and he responded like, yeah, like hit me up when you're here. Would love to see you. And then so I like DM'd him again, before the concert, and was like, hey, like, we'd like would love to hang out with you after the show if you're free at all, And then he hits me back, and we're like in bed. We're like, all right, I guess he's not gonna respond. And then he hits me back, and he's like, oh, like this is where the like trailer's at. Like we're about to leave in like an hour or two, but you can like come pull up. Like here's my number. You can text me. And then so we were like, all right, well, obviously we're going to go hang out with him.
Yeah.
And then and actually at this point, so this was when he was dating Ariana Grande at this point. It was right after the album The Divine Feminine had come out. He'd been sober for I think a year. He was still like chain smoking cigarettes and drinking soda. Like, a lot of people in recovery do.
Yeah. Coffee and cigarettes.
Yeah. So yeah, we like went and hung out in his studio for like an hour or two, and just was
he the same guy?
Yeah, he was the same. He was. That was one of the things about him. Every time that I saw, and we didn't really text much after that. I think that there were like maybe a couple times, and then he just like wouldn't really respond.
Yeah.
And he was hard to get a hold of always.
Yeah, I mean, he's busy.
He's busy and he's an addict, so that combination of, being famous and on drugs makes it hard to get in touch.
Just vanishes out of nowhere sometimes.
Yeah. And so, we hadn't talked in since then, really, before he died, but
that's awesome that you have those stories.
He was always and the same guy. And and like, it's what everybody says about him, that he was just like one of like the sweetest and like kindest people that you've ever met.
That's so cool.
But and I remember like like a year before he died, like when him and Ariana Grande broke up, and then like he got into that DUI and like
he kind of
all these things, and so I was worried about him, and like as like anybody would worry about their friend who was that person.
And it's also weird because you see it play out on such a big scale. I've been fortunate enough where I'm not any kind of famous, so whenever I would get arrested or anything, like nobody knew, and I could just not tell people.
Right, and that's what was so weird about it, like when he died, because it's like there is, and it's obviously like parasocial relationships are super weird, and like the way we we could talk forever about like how we like idolize and idealize like famous people and like pretend that they're our friends, but it's so weird when you lose somebody who is both like a celebrity and artist that you admire and look up to and are a fan of, and then also somebody personally, like somebody that you're friends with and care about on a personal level, and like them, their family, like
that's
it's
really
it's
difficult.
Weird, that whole like combination, and like to like miss them in both ways, and also for somebody that that personally, and it's public, everybody knows about it.
That's got to be hard, because it's one of those things where you said earlier, like he was getting better and better and better, and then it's like, okay, now it's just over, like we don't get any more,
right?
And my friend is gone, and I miss my friend,
right? I miss my friend, and I have the selfish thing of being a fan where I'm like, I want to hear more music. I want you were like. You were getting so good, like you were 26, like that, and then even like how I said, like turning 20 and 21 was crazy. Like I'm sure I'll feel the same way like next year when I turn 26. Of like being like, holy shit, this, and then especially like as like being an artist, and being like, wow, I like look at like anything I would have made when I was 18, and then look at what he was making, and the same thing with like each successive age.
At some of the joke books from when I was like 21, 22, when I first started getting on stage. Oh my god,
me too. Yeah,
it's fucking horrific.
It's awful. The jokes are so hacky. They're so dumb.
So bad.
Yeah. I realized, I literally like didn't know how to write a joke.
Yeah,
for like the first year I was doing stand-up.
And then there's people who like Mac.
Yeah, who are just like obviously the word genius gets overused.
Oh,
like,
so much. But in that case,
genius, like a true genius.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
18 doing that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, that's great. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Plug
thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Plug everything one more time. Let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at Mitrani, Amitrani, and then at Twitter on Twitter at Mitrani717. It's the same, spelled the same as Instagram, but with 717 after. It's
Boom.
The Harrisburg area code.
Harrisburg, represent. Shouts out. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening. Of course, follow me on all social media at Brennan T. Comedy. Check out the website, BrennanTComedy.com. I got dates coming up at Broadway Comedy Club on the 6th and the 17th. You can check the website for all the dates. Subscribe on Patreon, patreon.com/Brennan Tassif. And we'll talk to you all next week.